Alright, so hopefully you had a chance to attempt some of these problems, and now we're going to go through the process on how to find the answers. So the first question they're asking us is to find the area of the parallelogram. So again, what you need to remember is what's the formula, and that is just going to be base times height. Remember, the base has to be a side of your parallelogram, and then the height is going to be perpendicular to it. So you take a look at the first problem and you see that both sides are given to you. This is 38, which means this piece is 38, that's 24, and that's 24. But the problem is you don't see that there is a right angle. There are no altitudes right now. But hopefully what you notice is that there's a 30-degree angle in this corner here. So what you're going to want to do is drop an altitude from the top corner straight down. And what that's going to tell you is what you're going to use as your base. And what you're going to use as your base is that side that is 38. But what we're going to have to do now is use a little math in order to find the height, which is this piece right here. Now when you drop that altitude down, hopefully what you notice is that you have created a right triangle in this corner. And not only is it a right triangle, but it is a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. So across from the 30 is x, across from the right angle is 2x, and across from the 60 is, from here, x root 3. Now the 38 has absolutely really nothing to do with this triangle here. The one side that is the 24. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 24 and set it equal to 2x, and then we're going to solve for the x. Divide 2, x turns out to be 12. Now we really don't care about this piece here, but what we do want is the height, which is x, and that means the height is going to be 12. So the area to that parallelogram is going to be 38 times 12. We can get our calculator out now. 38 times 12, and that gives me an answer of 456. And again, we are dealing with area, so it should be units squared, since they're not telling me what my units should be. So there is the answer. Okay, let's take a look at the next problem. Same type of situation. Same type of situation, but now what we notice is that this side is 60, that's 18, and that's 18. And again, it is a parallelogram, so we're going to use the formula. Area is equal to base times height. So again, we take a look and we don't see an altitude. But again, we see that this is a 45-degree angle. So again, what we're going to do is drop an altitude down. And what that's going to tell me is that this is going to be used as my base. Because again, the altitude, the height, has to be perpendicular to one of my sides. So my base is 60. And again, I need to figure out what my height is. So what I take a look at is what type of triangle have I created. And it is a 45, 45, 90 triangle here in the corner. And again, across from the 45 is x, across from the 45 is x, and the hypotenuse is x root 2. So what we're going to do is take the 18 and set it equal to x root 2. And again, if you know the little shortcut, use your shortcut. Divide by root 2, divide by root 2. They will cancel, and you get x to be 18 over the square root of 2. Now I need to multiply the bottom and the top by the square root of 2, and I end up with 18 root 2 over 2, which turns out to be 9 root 2. So again, we really don't care about this piece here, but what we do want is this piece, which is x. X is 9 root 2, so that is my height. So my height is 9 root 2. So if I want an exact answer, now what I can do is take the 9 and the 60, multiply them together, and I get an answer of 540 root 2 units squared. If I want a decimal approximation, I can just multiply it by the square root of 2, and I get approximately 763.68 units squared. Again, exact answer is on the top because we got the radical 2. On the bottom is a decimal approximation. Let's continue on to the next question. This one says find x in the following parallelogram. Now what they're telling me is that the area is 60. They're telling me this side is 15. What they want us to do is find this piece right here. And again, what we should notice is that This bottom piece is my base, and that's my height. So let's start with the formula. Area is equal to base times height. Now in this case, they're telling me my area is 60. They're telling me my base is 15, and my height is the x. So in this case, all I need to do is divide both sides by 15, and I find out that x turns out to be 4. So we're talking about 4 units. And again, it should just be units to the first power. Now the next question is one of my favorite questions. They want us to find the value of x. And they don't tell us what the area is, but what you should notice is that this base has a height of x, and this base has a height of 4. And what you need to realize is that there's two ways for us to find the area to the same parallelogram. Using this as a base, and that's the height. That's the base, and that's the height. So if I was to use in the red base times height, the area would be 16 times x. And then if I did the purple ones, I would have area is equal to 8 times 4, which is 32. Now, they're the areas of the same parallelogram, so what we can do is take these two things and set them equal to each other. So I can take my 16x and set it equal to 32. Divide 16, and for this case, x turns out to be 2. So my answer would be 2 units. And that's a good, interesting question to take a look at for the parallelogram. All right, let's continue on with the triangles. From the notes, what you should have noticed is that I was talking about isosceles triangles and what happens when you drop an altitude down. And for triangles, let's remember the formula we're going to use. I am going to use base times height over 2, or some of you may be using 1/2 base times height. Either way, you should get the same answers. Let's take a look at the first question. So we're looking for area to be base times height over 2. And in order for us to use a base and a height, we need an altitude, but I don't see a right angle. So what I want to do is, I notice that it's isosceles, so I'm going to drop an altitude straight down. And when you drop the altitude straight down, you're going to bisect the base. So that means this is 15, and it means this is 15. It also tells you that this whole side is going to be your base. So you have 30 times something divided by 2. And what we need to do now is use a little Pythagorean theorem to help me figure out my height. So doing the little math here, I got leg squared plus the other leg squared, and that's equal to the hypotenuse squared. So I got h squared plus 15 squared is 225, and that's equal to 25 squared, which is a big number, which is 625. Subtract 225, subtract 225. And I get h squared to equal, should be 400. Square root both sides, and I get h to be positive and negative 20. But again, we only want the positive one. So I throw the 20 in here. Now I just have to be careful. The 30 times 20 on the top is 600 divided by 2. So my final answer is 300 units squared. And there you have it. So there we had to do a little Pythagorean theorem to help us figure out the problem. Let's take a look at the next question. Now the next question is talking about finding the area to this triangle here. And it is a right triangle. And remember, with the right triangle, the two pieces that are going to be my base and the height are the two sides that form the right angle. I need this side and I need this side. But again, one of the sides is given to me, the other one is not. So let's start with the formula. A is equal to B times H over 2. And one of my sides is 24. What I need to do is a little bit of math to find my other piece. So what can we do? We can do a little Pythagorean theorem again. X squared, 24 squared is equal to 30 squared. We got x squared, calculator time. 24 squared is 576. 30 squared is 900. Subtract 576, subtract 576, and I get x squared to equal 900 minus 576, and we get 324. Square root, and we get x to be positive and negative 18. But again, we only want the positive one. So this piece is 18, which is this piece right here. So doing my calculations, we got 24 times 18 on the top. I get 432 over 2. And then I just divide that by 2. And I get an answer of 216 units squared. Okay? And that is our final answer. All right, let's continue on with the next set of questions. Okay, the next set of questions is find the area to this triangle right here. And again, it's one of these obtuse ones where the altitude is outside of the triangle. And remember, I warned you that the base has to be a side of your triangle. So when we're looking at this being the altitude, the only part of the triangle I want to use is from here to there. So the formula again is area is base times height over 2. Now I know the height is 4. What I need to do is figure out the base. Well, looking at my triangle here, I can do a little Pythagorean theorem, or it's one of my family members. I can go x squared plus 4 squared is equal to 5 squared. And I can go x squared plus 16 is equal to 25. Subtract 16, subtract 16. X squared is equal to 9. Square root. X is positive negative 3. But again, I only want the positive one. So if the whole thing is 13 and this is 3, this piece has to be 10, and that's going to be my base. So I end up with 40 over 2, which is 20 units squared. And that's the answer to that particular problem. Now down the road, we're going to get another formula for an equilateral triangle. But until then, we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way by using base times height over 2. Now the nice thing is we know the base has to be 12 because all the sides are 12. Now, let's remember that all the angles in the corner are going to be 60 degrees. We also bisect the base when I drop the altitude down, so that means this piece is 6, and then we got the 30 up here. How do the three sides relate in a 30, 60, 90? Across from the 30 is x, the hypotenuse is 2x, and then this piece is x root 3. So what happens is x turns out to be 6, which means your altitude, your height is 6 root 3. And that's what I'm going to plug in here, 6 root 3. Now we just have to be careful. This 12 and the 2 reduce down to 6. So 12 divided by 2 is 6 times 6 root 3. And that finally becomes 36 square root 3 units squared. And again, if you want to calculate that out for a decimal approximation, that is fine. And the last one, we need to find the value of x. They're telling me my base is 16, and they're telling me my area is 64. So let's start with the formula. Area is equal to base times height over 2. The area is 64. The base is 16. The height is x, and that's all over 2. And there's a lot of things you can do first, second, third, or fourth. But I'm just going to take the 16 and 2, reduce that down to 8x. Divide 8, and x turns out to be 8. So my final answer is 8 units. And again, these are the type of problems that you're going to have to know how to do. Again, if you're having troubles with these, please make sure you stop in the morning.